New York City is not the future. It used to be. For nearly a century, it stood as the symbol of what a modern metropolis was supposed to look like, with its skyline, its yellow cabs, its subways grinding beneath the streets. But while New York has been frozen in a kind of architectural nostalgia, something else has been happening on the other side of the world. 10 cities in China have quietly leapt past every assumption the West holds about urban life. They are not catching up. They are not imitating. They have already moved into a future that New York will not reach for decades, possibly not in this century at all. What you are about to see is not science fiction. It is concrete, steel, fiber optic cable, and code, built at a scale and speed that defies belief. By the time this video ends, you will understand why engineers, urban planners, and economists from around the world keep flying to China just to study what is now possible. And you will understand why New York, for all its history, suddenly feels like a relic. Number 10 on this list is Hangzhou, a city most Westerners cannot find on a map, yet it operates as one of the most intelligent urban environments ever constructed. Hangzhou is the home of a system called the City Brain, an artificial intelligence platform that monitors traffic, emergencies, public transit, and infrastructure in real time across the entire metropolitan area. It processes data from tens of thousands of cameras, sensors, and connected vehicles, adjusting traffic signals on the fly to reduce congestion. Emergency response times have dropped dramatically because the system clears intersections for ambulances before they even arrive. Hospitals receive patient data, while paramedics are still en route. That is what happens when a city is treated as a single organism rather than a patchwork of disconnected systems. Compare that to New York, where traffic signals still rely on fixed timing schedules designed in another era, where ambulances regularly get stuck behind delivery trucks, and where the subway runs on signal technology that predates the moon landing. Hangzhou did not just digitize its city, it gave it a nervous system. The implications are staggering, because once urban infrastructure becomes responsive and predictive, every other system built on top of it inherits that intelligence. Hangzhou is what happens when a city stops being a place and becomes a platform. Number 9 is Chongqing, a megacity that contains more than 30 million people across a landscape of mountains, rivers, and canyons that should have made urban development nearly impossible. Instead, Chongqing has become a vertical labyrinth that defies the very concept of a flat city grid. Light rail trains pass directly through residential buildings. Highways stack on top of one another, 6 and 7 layers deep. Pedestrian bridges connect skyscrapers at the 22nd floor, and what looks like the ground floor of a building is often actually the 10th, depending on which side of the hill you approach. The city has solved the problem of density not by spreading outward, but by weaving infrastructure through 3 dimensions. Buses, monorails, ferries, escalators, and elevated walkways form a single continuous transport mesh, allowing residents to move from a mountaintop to a riverside neighborhood without ever stepping outside or hailing a cab. Imagine if Manhattan had been built on terrain like this. It would have collapsed into permanent gridlock within a decade. Chongqing handles its complexity by treating verticality as an asset rather than an obstacle. The result is a city that looks like a video game rendered in reality, and it is now the model that urban planners across Asia, Africa, and South America are studying to understand how to build the dense cities of the next century. New York is still arguing about whether to add a single new subway line. Chongqing built an entire transit ecosystem in 3 dimensions, while no one was watching. Number 8 is Shenzhen, a city that did not even exist as a metropolis 40 years ago. In 1979, it was a fishing village of around 30,000 people. Today, it is home to more than 17 million and produces more technology hardware than any other place on Earth. But the real story of Shenzhen is not its growth. It is what the city has become as a living laboratory for the future. Every taxi in Shenzhen is electric. Every bus is electric. There are more than 16,000 of them, and they all charge through a unified grid management system that balances energy demand across the entire fleet. Drone deliveries operate commercially, not as pilot programs, but as routine services. Autonomous delivery robots roam the sidewalks of business districts. 5G coverage is universal, not patchy or aspirational, and it powers everything from smart streetlights that dim when no one is present to industrial robots that coordinate across factories without human supervision. That is what happens when a city is built to absorb new technology faster than it can be regulated elsewhere. New York still debates whether to allow electric scooters in certain neighborhoods. Shenzhen has already moved on to autonomous logistics networks that will redefine what cities even need from human labor. The gap is not measured in years, it is measured in entire technological generations. Number 7 is Shanghai. And to understand why Shanghai sits ahead of New York in nearly every meaningful category, you have to look beyond the famous skyline of Pudong. Shanghai is a city where the financial core, the industrial periphery, and the residential outskirts are connected by the most extensive subway network in the world. Over 20 lines stretch across more than 800 kilometers of track, and new lines continue to open at a pace that would be considered impossible in any Western capital. The maglev train at the airport reaches speeds of 430 kilometers per hour, which is roughly 270 miles per hour, and it has been operating commercially since 2004. Shanghai has automated container terminals that move cargo with almost no human intervention, processing more shipping volume in a single year than every American port combined. The city has rolled out facial recognition payment in convenience stores, hospitals that issue prescriptions through artificial intelligence triage, and entire neighborhoods designed around walking and cycling rather than personal car ownership. New York still treats the automobile as the default unit of urban mobility. Shanghai treats the automobile as one option among dozens, and increasingly an outdated one. That is what happens when a city plans for the next 50 years rather than reacting to the last 50. Number 6 is Chengdu, a city that has become the unexpected center of digital culture, artificial intelligence, research, and green urban design in Western China. Chengdu has built an enormous ring of parkland and forested corridors that completely encircle the urban core, and these are not symbolic green spaces. They are functioning ecological systems that absorb carbon, regulate temperature, host wildlife, and provide active recreation for tens of millions of residents. Bicycle highways stretch for hundreds of kilometers, separated entirely from car traffic. The city has integrated air quality monitoring into public displays so that any resident can see, in real time, the environmental conditions of their specific neighborhood. Chengdu hosts research centers focused on quantum computing, biotechnology, and electric aviation, and it has become a magnet for talent migrating from coastal cities looking for affordability and quality of life. Imagine if Central Park were extended into a continuous green ring around all 5 boroughs of New York. That is roughly the scale of what Chengdu has constructed. The American city builds a single park and treats it as a national achievement. The Chinese city builds an entire ecological exoskeleton around its urban form and considers it the baseline for what a modern environment should provide. Number 5 is Guangzhou, a southern megacity that has transformed itself from an industrial powerhouse into one of the most logistically advanced metropolises on the planet. Guangzhou is the operational heart of the Greater Bay Area, an integrated economic zone that links 11 cities, including Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Macau, through a network of high-speed rail, undersea tunnels, and the longest sea bridge ever constructed. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge alone stretches 55 kilometers across the Pearl River estuary, with portions that submerge into an underwater tunnel to allow ships to pass overhead. Guangzhou itself has automated metro lines, port systems that operate around the clock without lighting because the machinery is fully robotic, and a financial district where artificial intelligence handles the majority of routine banking transactions. The city has made high-speed rail so accessible that a resident can travel to 20 other major cities within 4 hours and conduct business in any of them on the same day. New York is still debating whether the Northeast Corridor should ever have true high-speed rail, while Guangzhou treats it as basic infrastructure equivalent to municipal water service. That is what happens when a country decides that movement of people is as essential as the movement of electricity. Number 4 is Beijing, which most Western audiences associate with politics and history, but which has quietly become one of the most technologically saturated capitals in the world. Beijing has more than 20 subway lines moving more than 10 million passengers a day, and the system is being expanded continuously. The city has rolled out autonomous taxi services in entire districts, where residents summon driverless vehicles through smartphone applications and ride to their destinations without any human operator involved. Beijing has converted vast portions of its central core into low-emission zones where only electric vehicles can enter. Air quality, once notorious for being among the worst in the world, has improved dramatically through aggressive infrastructure changes, including the closure of coal plants, the electrification of transport, and the construction of artificial wind corridors that channel cleaner air through the urban grid. The city hosts an entire district called Zhongguancun, often described as the Silicon Valley of China, where startup density rivals anything in California. Beijing is also a leader in financial technology, where the digital yuan is being tested at full scale, allowing residents to pay for everything from groceries to taxes without using cash or traditional banking systems. New York still relies on a financial infrastructure built around physical bank branches, paper checks, and credit card networks, designed in the 1960s. Beijing has skipped 2 entire generations of financial evolution and is already operating in a post-bank environment. Number 3 is Suzhou, a city that combines a 2,000-year-old cultural heritage with one of the most advanced industrial parks ever built. Suzhou Industrial Park is not a business district in the traditional sense. It is a planned ecosystem covering nearly 300 square kilometers, designed in collaboration with Singaporean planners, where biotechnology firms, semiconductor manufacturers, software companies, and clean energy laboratories operate alongside residential neighborhoods, schools, hospitals, and lakes. The park is connected to the rest of Suzhou through a fully automated metro system, and the city itself is linked to Shanghai by trains that complete the journey in under 30 minutes, making the 2 cities effectively a single integrated economy. Suzhou produces a significant share of the world's display panels, electric vehicle components, and pharmaceutical ingredients. Yet most of its industrial activity is invisible because it has been buried inside parks, beneath landscaped corridors, and within architecturally designed campuses that look more like university grounds than factories. Imagine if all of New Jersey's industrial corridor were rebuilt to look like a botanical garden, with every factory replaced by a research campus, every truck replaced by an automated delivery system, and every smokestack replaced by a clean energy plant. That is roughly what Suzhou has accomplished, and it did so in less than 30 years. Number 2 is Wuhan, a city that the rest of the world only learned to recognize because of a global health crisis, but which is in reality one of the most ambitious infrastructure experiments anywhere on Earth. Wuhan sits at the confluence of the Yangtze and Han rivers and serves as the central transportation hub for inland China. The city has constructed an enormous high-speed rail network that places more than half of China's population within a 5-hour journey of its central station. Wuhan has built bridges across the Yangtze that are themselves engineering marvels, including double-deck structures that carry both road traffic and metro lines hundreds of meters above the water. The city is home to one of the largest optoelectronic research complexes in the world, producing fiber optic technology that powers global telecommunications networks. Wuhan is also a leader in autonomous driving research, with entire test corridors set aside for the development of next-generation vehicles. The city's response to the global health crisis, regardless of how it has been politically interpreted abroad, demonstrated the operational capacity of the Chinese urban model. Wuhan constructed fully equipped hospitals in days, deployed centralized logistics systems within hours, and coordinated millions of residents through digital health platforms that did not exist in any Western city at the time. That is what happens when a city is built with operational flexibility designed into its core. New York, by contrast, still struggles to coordinate its hospital systems across 5 boroughs that were officially merged in 1898. Number 1 on this list is Shenzhen, Hong Kong, as a unified mega-region, which represents perhaps the most extraordinary urban transformation in modern history. While Shenzhen alone is remarkable, its integration with Hong Kong, Macau, Guangzhou, and the surrounding Pearl River Delta has created an urban agglomeration that contains more than 70 million people and produces more economic output than most entire countries. This region operates as a single functional city, even though it crosses jurisdictions, currencies, and political systems. High-speed rail connects every major node within minutes. The financial systems of Hong Kong interlock with the manufacturing systems of Shenzhen and the logistics systems of Guangzhou. The undersea tunnels and bridges of the Pearl River Delta carry millions of passengers and tons of cargo every day. Within this region, you find autonomous ports, drone delivery zones, fully digital currency systems, biotechnology research centers, electric vehicle giants, semiconductor foundries, artificial intelligence laboratories, and quantum computing facilities, all operating within a single integrated metropolitan organism. That is what happens when an entire civilization decides to build a city on the scale of a country. New York, for all of its global influence, is functionally a single municipality of around 8 million people locked into infrastructure built between 1870 and 1960. The Pearl River Delta is something else entirely. It is the prototype of the urban form that will dominate the 22nd century, and it already exists. When you step back and look at all 10 of these cities together, a pattern emerges that is almost impossible to ignore. These are not isolated achievements. They are the result of a coordinated national vision that treats cities as instruments of long-term strategy rather than as accidental accumulations of buildings. Every one of these megacities has been designed to anticipate population growth, technological change, environmental pressure, and economic shifts decades before those forces fully arrive. They are built with redundancy, with intelligence, with adaptability, and with an understanding that the city itself is the most important product a modern civilization can produce. New York, by contrast, was built for a different century, and it remains stuck inside that century because the political, economic, and legal frameworks required to reinvent it simply do not exist in the same form. None of this is a moral judgment. It is simply a description of where the future is being constructed and where it is not. If you want to see what cities will look like in the year 2100, you do not need a time machine. You need a plane ticket. The future is already inhabited. Tens of millions of people wake up in it every morning. They commute through it, work in it, raise children in it, and treat it as ordinary, because for them, it is. The only question that remains is whether the rest of the world will choose to learn from what has already been built, or whether it will continue to insist that the future has not yet arrived. If this video gave you a new way of thinking about cities, leave a comment with the city you would most like to see explored next. Hit the like button so the algorithm shares this with more people who deserve to see what is actually happening in the world. And subscribe to the channel, because there is far more coming, and you do not want to be the last person to find out what the future already looks like. The cities that will define the next 100 years are being constructed at this very moment, brick by brick, fiber by fiber, line by line of code. And the people who understand this earliest will be the ones who shape what comes next. Do not be the person who learns about it last.